Before the break, a reminder about your NordVPN that Adam's been using extensively.
Again today, it's still working.
Again today, still working.
Still working. I wonder how many days my NordVPN will allow me to watch the World Cup whilst I'm in America. Yeah. I'm only here until the 12th.
Okay.
If it gets me to the 12th, then, well, that's the job done.
It's paid for itself.
And it's not even a Nord thing, by the way. Nord is so good. It's so efficient. It's so quick. It knows where I am. It knows where I want to be. Do what you want to do, be what you want to be. Yeah, that could be the slogan for Nord. Listen to us, we can write your ad copy as well.
Totally. You would just do it on the fly, do it on the hoof. The point is that when you want to listen to something or watch something in a place where you can't do it, you can then tell the internet you're somewhere else. That's what a VPN does. It's magic. NordVPN.com/TFW. You get a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you don't like it or it doesn't work for you, fine. It costs you nothing. You get a big discount because you use the link that's in our show notes, and that gets you a big discount.
Yep.
And you help the show because they're supporting the show and you're supporting them and they're supporting us. It's a virtuous cycle.
The expression, spend money to make money, that's how I feel about NordVPN.
Okay.
I'm spending money to save money. And in all sorts of ways, not just because I can avoid buying a cumbersome subscription, as is which I, by the way, as I pointed out,
would happily have done
if it wasn't a fucking shambles. But it's saving
Apparently
me money.
there's an app. Apparently you've got to get an app.
Oh, look, if I've got to get an app, I'll happily get an app. But, the broader point stands. That needn't have been complicated, and I made it more simple because I had NordVPN on my iPad, and I was bim, bam, bosh, and away we go.
Bim, bam, bosh.
But it also saves you money in relation to price discrimination, right? So you can be where you need to be. Often I'm buying flights and buying rooms and accommodation and buying other logistical travel bits and pieces. If you're in the travel industry,
hair
you should
products.
Get your hair products. And
it might be cheaper in some places and some countries heavily tax certain items. Well, you can buy them from somewhere else.
And on that basis, you can choose to be where you need to be when you need to be there. NordVPN/TFW. It's cheaper because of us. 30-day guarantee. And fuck, it's a beautiful thing.
All right, let's have a break. We've got cricket after that.
Okay.
It is The Final Word, Season 16, Episode 18. We've had a little bit of Americana sitting in the park on a lovely day in Eisenhower Park underneath the big oak tree. I'm going to guess that's what it is.
Feels
oakish.
What are the trees in This Land Is Your Land? This land is the red gum forest?
Redwood forest. It's definitely not a redwood. That's a California thing.
Yeah, nice song though.
You'd know a redwood if you saw one. They're absolutely massive. They're like kilometres tall.
It's one of the songs that we used to sing in grade 3 at Southern Cross Primary School with Miss Jamison, the best teacher I've ever had.
Okay.
Wonderful woman. We used to sing.
I hear she's on the rocks. Jamison.
Very good. We used to sing that at the Endeavour Hill Shopping Centre.
Did you?
That was one of the songs. Okay. Our choir, it was so fucking wholesome. Yeah. Just her class of 28 kids. I don't know why I remember we had 28 kids. Okay. We had 28 kids. That she turned us into a choir, and we would sing at nursing homes and sing at festivals and stuff like that.
Right.
What a great thing to do when you're 9 years old. And This Land Is Your Land was part of it. Sloop John B. Yeah. It was also something. So she had a thing for American tracks, clearly. Hello, Miss Jamison, if you're listening. Probably not.
Johnny Be Good, when you travelled back in time to the 50s and played it on your guitar in front of the school dance.
Just before we jump into everything else, Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. The competition's running right now. Jeff, you've sleuthed this. The clever thing to do is to jump on the Westfield
app first.
You download the app. We're helping you win money here, people. Yeah. Go on the app before you listen to the show. And through the app, you will learn what the question is and the secret question.
Because we don't know what it is until after we've recorded. We record the show and then we find a bit and say this should be the question and the answer.
Right. So you'll upon listening to this, you will go, okay. Well, if you know
what to listen out.
And it may be that it's something in segment 1. It'll be fresh to you now.
It may be. What is the name of Mike's daughter?
I did think that. As he said that, I thought that might not be a bad question for our Westfield £50 voucher this week. And if you're not in at the UK, sign up anyway, win the voucher, and gift it to somebody.
Well, that might be a bit weird if we do that for her. It might be what is she named after? Something
Isla
like
Fisher. That's who she's
not named after.
This wasn't a Home and Away
Wedding
fan.
Crashes.
Wedding Crashes.
Wedding Crashes fan. All right, let's do some. What do we have to do? We're looking at we're looking at other cricket that's not the T20 World Cup.
Yeah, there's a bit going on.
There's a little bit going on.
I wanted to start with, I wanted to start just with the men's stuff to complete the conversation about the T20 World Cup. So England's men had the best possible prep in many respects for coming over here. They had a home series against Pakistan, so a proper series. It wasn't a warm-up game with 8 blokes playing. They didn't have to go anywhere, didn't have to travel anywhere, and they completed their 4-game series against Pakistan on like Thursday night before jumping on the plane on Friday. I think I mentioned to you that I flew to Dallas with the Pakistan support staff the other day, so I assume England were travelling to the Caribbean at the same time, but they kept the Pakistan side to 157.
Pakistan, more like pack a bag, eh?
And all 6 England bowlers took a wicket, which is very unusual in T20 cricket. Mark Wood bowled balls in the mid-90s. I think his highest, quickest delivery was 96 mile an hour, so he's good to go. Jofra was bowling in the 90s. Their spinners were working. Livingston took a wicket with leg spin, a wicket with off spin. Like, it's just kind of, they've got muscle memory winning tournaments. They won this competition the last time they were there. It is a bit of a different dynamic now. Things change, of course. But
all of that true, but England beating Pakistan is a thing that seems like it happens a lot.
It does. Pakistan are in England a lot playing white ball cricket, but
losing a lot.
You would not want to underestimate a side that's got, well, when they batted in that chase, they had Phil Salt, terrific T20 IPL tournament opening with Joss Buttler, who made 200s there.
And also an instruction if you're a waiter, you might be told to Phil Salt.
Yes, exactly. Will Jacks, I don't know if that's an instruction as well. He came in.
It's more a prediction, I suppose.
It's a prediction.
It's a statement of intent.
Johnny Bairstow, who I got
Billy
a message
Root.
on Twitter from John Donahoe, a colleague of mine from SEN overnight, saying that Bairstow's now got his 6th bat sponsor. Which I thought was quite interesting, like someone who follows that, saying that Bairstow's churned through them so quickly over the years, where typically you have 1 or maybe 2 through a test career. That Bairstow
he quite likes to go out
and
and bat with a nude stick for a while, just to advertise that he's on the market.
So he made quick runs batting down at number 5, having again made hundreds in the IPL. So they are.
Where is Woodstock?
Set.
Why doesn't Woodstock get a hold of Johnny Bairstow? Where's Woodstock? The TFW 20, you still get your 20% off a Woodstock bat.
Why wouldn't you?
Johnny will get him for free, you get 100% off, but still.
So that was the last game they played before jumping on the plane. The other news that England put out on Friday, which I think we should speak about in slightly more serious tones, is Brydon Carse. He's received a 16-month suspension. Which is
a kick up the Brydon Carse.
Which has been 13 of those months have been suspended. So he's serving
he's got a 3-month
ban, having self-reported on having placed 303 bets between.
It really is one of the sneaky workarounds, the suspended sentence. It's like with the Stokes thing in 2017 when they retrospectively banned him for the amount of time that he'd already been suspended for.
It is.
It's a bit cute.
It is, but I think on this occasion, I think it's the right thing to have done, because he has self-reported.
I'm not saying that he means that he should have been banned for a really long time. I'm saying that giving a suspended sentence makes it seem like you get to quote a big number that sounds more impressive. If you want to ban him for 3 months, ban him for 3 months, but don't pretend that it's longer than that. You know?
But to the substance of it rather than the bits and pieces. So he, it is serious. He did place 303 bets on cricket. He's citing the support he received from the PCA. I mean, it's pretty clear what's happened here, right? That he's had a problem. No one's questioning the integrity of the games that he was betting on, by the way.
Right.
None of the games involved any teams that he's played with or for, so it's not that.
He's betting on other cricket
He was
matches.
betting on other cricket,
Right.
so which you're not allowed to do. Everybody
but it's one of the great
game,
hypocrisies of this thing is that we live in a sport, and the same thing happens in Australian football and whatever. A sport which is plastered wall to wall with sports betting, advertising, and then people, like players, get in trouble for falling victim to that.
Well, I was going to say exactly the same thing. So being a human being who goes on to bet, when a lot of the advertising is geared around getting human beings to bet, you're asking...
And you're becoming the advertiser. You're the billboard, the walking billboard for...
Yeah. So I don't want to overplay this. There's been no further reporting on this beyond what was put out. People are being respectful about this. From a cricket perspective, the fact that Carse is definitely in the running, I guarantee you, is in the running to play Test cricket this summer. It's sad timing.
Out till 28th of August.
Out till the 28th of August,
which
means
they play a bit after that.
They do play Test matches in September.
Okay.
They played 2 of the 3, I think, against Sri Lanka in Sep, so he could get brought in for a test or 2 at the very end, but he'll have no cricket to go on, so he'll have to, they'll be reluctant to play him on the back of no 4-day cricket. Maybe they get him a 4-day game straight away. That might be possible with the county championship starting again in the first week of September rather. So there is a way through for him this year. But yeah, Sam Cook getting injured last week and Brydon Carse the ban this week. That's 2 of the players they are very keen to get test matches into this summer. So that probably opens the door for Dylan Pennington. I'd be surprised if it doesn't. and that'll be a conversation that continues. But yeah, put the cricket to one side. You're right. We spend a lot of time on this show reinforcing our argument that the relationship between the sport and the relationship that is clearly there commercially with gambling isn't an appropriate one, because we've seen so many instances of the game being subject to really horrible things with integrity, match fixing, spot fixing, and all the rest of it, and players being. And
we're all supposed to be shocked by this. We're all supposed to, have a deep intake of breath and shake our heads and say, "Oh, it's very sad. It's very sad that somebody accepted money for this, and it shouldn't happen, and they get banned, and their livelihoods get ruined, but other people are still getting rich off the gambling money that's coming in."
And as it is in so many walks of life, it's the most vulnerable who typically suffer. It's players from teams and nations who've got less money to start with, who receive these inducements, and they've still got a position of influence being a player in a T20 tournament or whatever it is, and that's where their life and their career certainly goes off the tracks and off the rails. So I'm pleased that this has been nipped in the butt from Carse's perspective. It could have been worse, right? He could have played his first test match.
In the butt sounds pretty uncomfortable.
It could have been in the bud. He could have been playing a test match on debut, and like it was with Ollie Robinson with the ridiculous tweets that he sent 10 years earlier, it's when you reach that level that there's more scrutiny. So this happening to Carse now is bad short term, good medium term for him, and I'm sure he's getting the support he needs. The PCA are fabulous on this stuff. I know that a couple of years ago they were doing seminars with every club about problem gambling. They really know this is a challenge for them. So hopefully this will, in the long term, be something that's good for the game.
Yeah, and I guess he could be making a debut in September and there'll be some muttering around it about how he's just come back from suspension and so on, which isn't how you'd want to be making your debut, but at least it could be behind him one way or another. I want to look at something that was sent in to us from Josh Withers, who is very interested in the Bannerman chat we've had on our show. We're going to a level of cricket we don't spend a lot of time on. This is Division 3 of the South Northants Cricket League. Brackley Cricket Club, who made 167 all out in their 40 overs. They were
always like a south-north or a north-south, like in this case the South Northampton, or if you're playing in the Southern Yorkshire League or something like that, that's something that from a language perspective interests me. Please continue.
So it was Woodford Hulse who made the 167 batting first up against Brackley. And then in the second innings, Brackley Cricket Club, a solid effort from Steve Goodridge at the top of the order, who made 70. The players to follow made 4 0 4 0 0 0 0 0. Have I run out of noughts? Is that 10, or do I have to do 0 not out? So we had 8 runs that were not scored by Steve out of the 86 that were made. There must have been a handful of extras. 8 extras. 8 other runs off the bat, and 70 runs to Steve Goodridge. So 70 out of 86 is a lot more than 70%.
It's an 80.4% calculation. I did this before we recorded the show.
So it's not quite a Glenn Turner.
But what you don't, yes, it's not, but you very rarely see this many runs scored for an 80%er. An 80%er is typically when a team's all out for 20.
And someone's made 17 or something.
Right, like when you look back at old county scorecards where this has happened, or club games or whatever. So to get into the mid-80s, and that's what makes Turner's achievement all the more remarkable, that it was out of 143, 141 out of 161 or whatever it was.
Yes, that sounds
But this is more in that vein of Bannerman. So pleased to get it sent in from Josh Withers, and maybe...
Even more impressive is that he got out. So Steve Goodridge was dismissed. So normally if you're out, you're not going to be able to Bannerman it,
right?
Because someone else will do something. But it didn't happen.
Now we're into the England club season. Most clubs have played 1 or 2 rounds by now. Get your Bannermans coming in. We haven't done this for a couple of years, but if you see one out in the wild, report it to us and we'll report it to the world.
Yeah, if it's more than 67.34?
67.35%.
Yeah.
So if it's above that, remember the rule is it's not just any old innings.
No, completed innings.
Yeah, out of an all-out.
Yeah, has to be all-out, which could include retired hurt. Has to be a completed innings.
A completed innings. So no declaration and no
no chases.
No chases, that's right.
Well, and no limited overs. You batted.
You could do it in a chase if
you're all out.
9 down. You can't be all out in the chase, can you? Oh, you can, but you can't be all out in a
You could be all out in the tide chase.
In a tide chase.
A la England. When England bowled out for the 241, or were they
all out in the tide chase?
Yeah. Well, no.
Oh, right. Last ball of the World Cup final. Yeah, Mark Wood run out. Would have been a number 11, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I think he's batting 11.
I think they're all out.
Yeah, there you go.
As opposed to 241 for 8, which is why New Zealand were a little salty, lost fewer wickets.
There was no run out that day.
Anyway.
There was more England-Pakistan action, Jeff, last week. This was the last women's one-dayer, so the second one was rained off. The third one, They were at what they used to call Fortress Chelmsford, not quite the fortress anymore. It's been penetrated a little bit in the last couple of years, not least by Australia in 2019 on an especially high-scoring night in a T20 international. But yeah, this game at Chelmsford, England won by 178 runs to wrap up the series. England made 302 for 5. Nat Sciver, 124 not out from 117 balls. She's averaging 70 with the bat and 23 with the ball since she got married. So, you know, that says something about the institution of marriage.
Okay.
Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's correlation, not causation, but she's clearly very happy. Had help from Maya Bouchier, he made 34. Danny White, 44. Amy Jones, 27. Alice Capsey, 39 not out at the end of the innings. Heather Knight made 12, and I did detect online there were a handful of people calling for her head, saying that she should be sacked as one-day captain. That's a bold call.
Okay. And
specifically to be replaced by Grace Scrivens, who's just turned 20 and never played for England.
Okay, interesting.
So it was an unorthodox way of interpreting things. But
well, maybe it's like a Cameron White for Victoria situation. You know, get a young talent, untrammeled, unblemished, no baggage. Get him in captaining. You know, Graham Smith for South Africa. Get him in fresh Travis Head at South Australia. It's worked on some of those occasions.
Yeah, well, they'd all played a bit of cricket at that level first and done well would be the main difference. And
Scrivens sounds like an exclamation that an old British person says.
Well, she's been captaining. She's doing a good job at the Sunrisers and clearly did a good job with the England 19s, getting them to the final a couple of years ago. She's going to be playing for England very, very soon. But sending her in as captain before she's played,
might be a bit
of a
much.
stretch. And also with a 50-over World Cup round the corner in
2025.
I'm trying to remember when it is. 2025. It's middle of the year from memory in India.
Is it?
I don't think it's the start of the year. Because they've got a T20 World Cup in Bangladesh in October. They wouldn't be going.
No, it must be, and then they'll have the WPL. So it must be the September, October.
Yeah, that later window. That's right. Anyway, it's a moot point because they won't be sacking Heather. But just interesting that I suppose the one way you could interpret it is that Heather Knight's been captain since June 2016. That's when she took over officially from Charlotte Edwards, her first game at Leicester, which I remember well, which made a 50 and took a fifer in that game against Pakistan. When you think succession planning with that England women's side, it's not easy to identify who the next skipper is because a lot of the senior players are about Heather's age. So if they want to do a jump, then you go into the Eccleston generation, but she's a bowler. Well, they want to do a bowler. Dunkley's not even in the team at the moment, well, not all the time.
But should be and will be.
That's right. Can be, should be, will be, but isn't. So is there a Charlie Dean option? I'm just throwing her name out there because she seems like she's got a very, very good head on her shoulders, being Mancad notwithstanding. But yeah, I think Eccleston, I think she would be the one. But yeah.
But she carries such a burden anyway that I don't know if captaining would help. Yeah,
I suppose people said the same thing about bowlers who've done the job before. Most recently in the men's game, Pat Cummins, he's done a terrific job. So
but he doesn't carry that attack in the same way as Eccleston does for England.
And she took 3 more in this game that I mentioned before. There were wickets as well for Sciver Brunt, 2 for 11. Bell picked up a couple, Cross 1, Dean 1. Their next assignment is New Zealand, the England women. Then they've got India at the end of the summer, then that T20 World Cup in Bangladesh. As for Pakistan, they've got a lot of work to do to become an automatic qualifier for the 50-over World Cup. In fact, I don't think they can. They've played almost all their games, and they'll be overtaken the way Ireland was in the men's Super League a couple of years ago. Like, they won't stay in the automatic qualifying spots. They'll have to do it the hard way, which is good in a way, but also, given the progress Pakistan have made, you'd hope you would hope they're at the stage now where they're giving themselves a good chance to be an automatic qualifier. Chef, we've also had the Charlotte Edwards Cup.
Yeah, halfway through. Five each, 5 to go.
Yep, that's the state of play. So just some kind of quick bits that jumped out at me rather than doing all the games that were played last weekend while we were over here in the States. Well, actually, I'll focus on one game, a belter down at Arundel, which, what a great thing that they're playing. They're using Arundel. I think it's terrific. It's such a glorious sort of amphitheatre there with the grass banks and the way you can take those glorious photos there, and it's a road as well, so it usually lends itself to high scoring. This wasn't a massively high scoring game, but it was a thriller between the Sunrisers, who we mentioned just before, and the Vipers. They've got a really weird rivalry because it seems to be the Sunrisers who are the team who can really duke it out with the Vipers on a consistent basis. This time around, the Sunrisers 134 for 5. Joanne Gardner made 42 and top scored. Maddie Villiers, the Essex spinner, who's played a bit for England, 34 not out, down the list of 27 balls. The Vipers were flying. Charlie, not the opener, was 50 off not many off the top. And then Sophie Munro went to work in the middle overs, took 4 for. They needed 12 from the final over, the Vipers. And Eva Gray closed it out, finished with 1 for 16 from 4, 8 runs from the final over. They get the job done by a few runs, and that means that the Vipers are out of the finals positions at this stage of the comp, which never would have happened before. No. They're 2 and 3 after 5 games. So that's
the Vipers, the Daniel Norcross Vipers. All right, work to do at the back end. Should do a little bit of Nerd Pledge?
Yeah, got one more thing to talk about. Why don't we do Nerd Pledge first and come to the last
Let's duck through it. This isn't going to be a conventional Nerd Pledge.
Not a conventional show, really.
Not a conventional show. It's out of order, and here we are. But this just tickled my fancy. Nerd Pledge is a game that we play with nice people who listen to the show and decide to help us fund the program. They send in an amount of currency in a number that relates to cricket. We try to work out what it means. Somebody like Luke Reynolds has Nerd Pledged a few times over the years, and this is kind of funny because we had one from Luke probably a year ago, which he only relatively recently sent us back the revisit information to say that we hadn't guessed the number. It was $18.81. I talked about a bunch of games between Camperdown and Mortlake in 1881, right? And then a few weeks ago, we had a new number from Luke, which we did on the show, which was $24.73. And I talked about Shane Watson's T20 bowling average being 24.729 or something like that.
That's right, yes.
Right? And so we had the older revisit come in from Luke just a couple of weeks before his new number came up, which he then sent in the revisit for. So we're in the rare position of having the double revisit, the lesser spotted double revisit, of having 2 revisits for the same pledger. And given that we went to visit Luke in Pombeneep when we shot that video stuff down at the cricket club a couple of years ago, I thought, why not do them both on the same show? So I'm gonna lob these at you in tandem, and we'll see how we go.
All right. Hearing you might have done no prep here. So
no, that's fine. That's fine. You won't need it for this.
Okay.
So Luke said, taking advantage of the long statute of limitations initially about the 1881. It wasn't about Camperdown Mortlake. It was about an unspectacular Test career that doesn't get talked about much, and is overshadowed by a World Cup innings. I'm confident the player in question is also the answer to who was keeping wicket when Tim Zura was bowling, right? That's number 1.
Right.
24.73, he says, my pledge is exact, whereas the Watto one needed to be rounded up, relates to another great all-rounder, a debut performance in a format the player was less known for, but the player was in my childhood Victorian Holy Trinity with Dino and Warney. His debut was mostly
pretty clear that Luke
okay.
and I are the same age here, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just kind of really drills. I reckon we're probably born within 12 months of each other based on this.
And I speculated about the answer given his pledge had come in at 1:30 in the morning. He said, I'm pretty sure I can confirm my 1 a.m. pledge would have been after a few craft beers and can be very sure it was after some late night YouTubing. So, 1881, Mike Valletta's test average was 18.81. Yep. 24.73, Simon O'Donnell in his first test in June 85 in England, golden duck in the first innings, and then made 24 of 73 in the second innings. There you go.
Yeah, well, Simon O'Donnell's a funny one, isn't he? So when he comes into the test side at 85, remember there's the shadow of what's going on in South Africa.
Yeah.
It's a very unusual trip in that respect, in that they don't have the full complement of players at their disposal because the news breaks about what's going to happen with the Rebel Tours. They're compromised accordingly. And O'Donnell gets his opportunity, and he plays all 6 test matches in that summer. A couple of half centuries. I think he takes a 5 for at Birmingham, memory serves me correctly as well, but doesn't really... by the end of it, his numbers are not flattering at all. Right? But they were investing in this guy at that age, and as it turns out, the World Cup link between these 2 players, they both play in 87. And as we've talked about with Simon O'Donnell before when telling his story, he realises during that World Cup that he's ill, and they establish after it's all over that he has got cancer. And remember, I've talked before about that Commonwealth Bank coaching tape that I used to wear out when I was a kid, when Simon O'Donnell made his return to the one-day side in 1988, having been really sick, and the way the crowd at the SCG got behind him, they had a camera right up in his face when he was wearing his helmet about to go into bat again. So that's after the World Cup. And then between 89-90 and 91-92, Simon O'Donnell is, along with Dino, the 2 most important players in that one-day team. The summer of 1990-91, those 2 ridiculous innings that he plays at the MCG, one against England and one against New Zealand. It's often forgotten that he was the ICC Player of the Year that year, in 1990-91. Didn't play Test cricket, but he still received the top gong. I think they call it the Sobers Medal these days, don't they? It's the Garfield Sobers Medal. Yeah. Simon O'Donnell got that on the basis of his brilliant one-day work with the bat, bowling first change, and he was so effective. But by the end of 91-92, the star fades as quickly as it's risen after the cancer treatment. He doesn't make the 92 World Cup. They don't pick him. They leave him out because his form drops. I remember he was getting smashed in that tri-series in 91-92 against the Windies, and the Windies and India, and he didn't make it to the World Cup at the very end of that summer. So, you know, the O'Donnell story's got some really high points, and the Sheffield Shield win that he led Victoria to in that same summer, 90-91, is a high point for him. There's still the chair at the MCG on level 3 or level 2A, where you can go and find it, where he hit the 6 in the Shield game not long after the Great Southern Stand was erected. So great fella, love working with Scoob, one of the really true gentlemen that you come across in cricketing media circles. And I think the fact that he did such a great stint starting the cricket show and then getting the chance to be the compere on Channel 9, and for a time there he was being sized up as Richie Benaud's replacement, wasn't he? Like, he calls the Darren Gough hat-trick in 1999 at the SCG, and he's on commentary for a number of years. Then Mark Nicholas kind of rocks up and basically overtakes Simon O'Donnell in that role. But yeah, he's still a huge personality, big presence on radio, as much in horse racing these days as it is cricket. And yeah, I'm just really glad that we get a chance to talk about him again for Luke Reynolds.
And Mike Valletta's an interesting one because he, 11 Test innings, he ends up averaging 18.81, highest score of 39. But he plays some tough Test matches. He plays one in the 87-88 Ashes. He plays against the West Indies in 88-89 when they're completely beating up everybody, and he doesn't get to open. Like, generally he's an opener at state level, right? But he's batting in the middle order, or even lower at times for Australia. He bats at first drop a little bit. And then there's that sort of curious quirk with his one-day career. The 19 times he bats in one-day cricket, only twice does he ever have an innings where he scores it faster than a runner ball. And one of them's 43 off 39 balls against Zimbabwe during the World Cup. And the other one's that famous innings against England in the final, 45 not out off 31, which is extraordinary. And like in that era, you didn't score a strike rate of 145. Like that'd be decent in a one-dayer now.
You can make a case. You can make the case that he should have been player of the World Cup final. Yeah, I think if this game were replayed now, he would be. Because what do Australia make? 230 odd?
253.
253, sorry, and they're nowhere near getting that.
No, but Borders made 31 at sort of a runner ball, but there's been a very stodgy, Booney 75 off 125 balls, Jeff Marsh 24 off 49, classic Jeff Marsh.
And they've done their job, by the way. That's what you did in one-day cricket then. It's not being critical, but
no, but that's where you're set up. Is that from that point someone's got to finish the innings?
Yes.
And Dino also scores slowly, 33 off 57. So they're that far, but by the time Jones gets out, Jones is out with a score at 151. They sent Craig McDermott in to try to smash a few pinch hitting.
That's right.
But that doesn't last
Good
very
quiz
long.
Question. Did he bat?
Who batted 4?
4, wasn't it? Yeah.
14 off 8 balls. But yeah, it's Valletta bringing it home with Steve Waugh 5 not out to get him to 253, and England fall just short. In the end, 7 runs the difference. So.
Can you tell me when Valletta's last one-dayer was?
The last one.
The last one-day he played?
May 89. He
May 89.
did not bat against England at Lords.
Right, okay. I knew he played in 89 before the Ashes. That he got. I wondered whether he might have got one in the 1990s as well before he retired. But
no, he played 2 on that 89 tour where Australia chased it 4 down, and he was due in next, not required.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those ones where if you were offered a more substantial Test career and not to have played in a one-day World Cup final.
Yeah, would you take it?
I think some cricketers might have taken that, but with, in retrospect, because he did what he did in that final on that one day, it doesn't matter quite so much that it didn't work for him as a Test player. And he did have a prolific, career with West Australia. We talked about his partnership with Jeff Marsh many times on Storytime.
And he plays a big part in a Test revival for Australia by winning that World Cup.
Yeah,
that's sort of what sets them up to become a better team.
Well, that's for Luke Reynolds. There's your 2 revisits. I'm glad we were able to sneak them in. I think, Jeff, if I'm looking at my clock, we've got time. Let's finish off the show in this segment rather than throwing to the second ad. The Vitality Blast opening stages.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear about this. I have not had enough T20 cricket over here, and I want to know about a lower tier of T20 cricket where all the Dutch players are playing because they're not allowed to come here.
I really like the Blast.
Fine.
The Blast is a lovely thing to be
like
part
a lot
of.
Things.
I don't think I'm doing any of the Blast games this year, but I'll generally float around.
Yep.
would you believe my computer screen has just died in front of me, so I can use yours instead. Yeah. Isn't that resourceful? Aren't we clever sausages?
We're flexible.
So I'm just going to run through the opening handful of games. I'm not going to give you all the detail. There's 140 blast games each year or something. Yeah. Impossible to stay on top of. Fine. But what I can say, Lancs, Birmingham, who Warwick should call themselves Birmingham in the blast, Yorkshire and Northants have 2 wins each in the northern group. Surrey undefeated in the southern group. Interesting that Essex have lost both their games. What jumped out at me, Durham were bowled out for 75 in their first game by Lancs and 101 in their second game by Birmingham. So Durham are under the palm, having finished the
I thought they were the new county baseball team.
Yeah, but they're just not transferring it to T20 cricket, which might say a little bit about the nuances of baseball and how it's misunderstood. Northants and Derbyshire, final ball thriller. With Ravi Bopara. Ravi Bopara's changed clubs. I didn't even know he was playing for Northants. 56 not out to ice the chase.
Northants feels like the kind of club where he should end his career in about 7 years from now.
What a man.
He'll still be going.
Derby, after losing to Northants, beat Leicester in the final over, chasing 180 odd after Pete Hanscom, who's captaining Leicester in the T20 stuff. Can't get a game in the Big Bash in the last few years, but he made 75 not out from like 50 balls there. So a good start for Hanscom, even though Derby did get over them in the end. Surrey beat Hampshire in a final over game, or a final over chase, I should say. Tom Curran, who's been missing a lot of cricket in the last 12 months.
World Cup medal holder, Tom Curran.
Yeah, interesting career in that he's not really available for 4-day cricket anymore. Made 37 not out from 20 balls to get them over the line. Surrey made 200 in their next game. They made that against Glamorgan, the first team to reach 200 in the season. Jamie Smith picking up from where he left off a couple of weeks ago against Worcester, smashed 76 in no time at all. Those who were there for it said that this guy's just purring right now. He's player of the match. Kent also made it beyond 200, 205 for 8 against Middlesex. We're having the hot Joe Denley summer here, Jeff. He's in the runs again, 56, 57 for Kent out of 200 odd. And Parky took forfer, which I'm always happy to see. There was an incident too where Parkinson was felled in the non-strikers end. Yeah, it could have been Callum. Parkinson.
Parkinson.
You know why I'm being general here. I saw it on TikTok. A ball was smashed at him at the non-strikers end. One of the Parkinsons, and the fielding team did not run out the Parkinson. They did the right thing. And that is actually spirit of cricket.
Wait, as in it hit him?
So the non-striker was out for the count, the ball smacking him in the guts. And the fielding team.
But he was out of his crease
to knock the bails off. They're like, no, we're not doing that. And that actually is spirit of cricket. That is where. I think there's enough nuance in the game to know that is
someone
the right
through
thing.
no fault of their own
That's right.
has had a bad thing happen to them.
Correct, you've got it. Yeah, there is nuance to how we interpret this formulation of words. Somerset chased 194 against Essex, so that's Essex' second loss. Tom Abel, great to see him back. He picked up a hamstring injury at the worst possible time. He's given up the captaincy at Somerset this year. He's played in all the T20 comps. He wants to play Test cricket and white ball cricket for England. He's a gun. Then he picked up a hammy injury just as the season was starting, but a 50 here, so well played, Tom. And a million games, so we're not going to be able to stay on top of them, but we'll try and do a bit of an easy breezy thing like that to see what we see each week on the weekly show, and that's where the weekly show comes to an end. It's been a messy one, but I enjoyed how we did it.
It's been like, I don't know, eating a pavlova with your hands, a whole pavlova, just using gravity, just like folding it in half and tipping it towards you on the cardboard box. I'm not speaking from experience. I've never done that, and I never would do something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Just imagining.
I called up Winnie this morning, and it was a time of the day where she watches an episode of TV with what she calls an ice lolly.
I love when a Harley drives past while you're recording a podcast. Great.
It's like a homemade.
Literally had a Stars and Stripes tank. I shit you not.
A homemade icy pole where we just fill up the container, and she was struggling to squeeze. She likes getting squeezed out for her and then sculling the juice at the end.
A kid
she is your child. Or whatever.
So
a kid, that's a reference, isn't it? So
sure is. Shotgunning it. Can she get her car keys and punch a hole in the side and really get the icy pole juice going down far?
Never became a thing, shotgunning a beer in Australia, did it? Not really.
Oh, sure did.
But nowhere near as big a deal as it is in the States.
No, but it was certainly when I was a teenager at out of suburban loose social events, shotgunning was pretty consistently. It was more like 440s of Woodstock premix.
Right, yeah.
But there was a lot of shotgunning.
Shotgunning beers was big. My last year of high school.
You had to do it just with the car key. It was always like the casual nature of the car key punch.
And the minute that you open that can, it just pours down the gullet.
It's gone.
I might shotgun a beer.
The
This
magic
afternoon.
of hydroengineering,
Couldn't
something
rule it
that we
out.
explored a lot in the outer suburbs. Yeah.
Final word for Westfield
it.
London. It's for Westfield Stratford City. This will be coming out, all things being equal, before we put out the next daily show. That's how it's meant to work.
I think so.
The daily shows are coming out once or twice a day, depending on what's going on. There's a story time already in the can that we recorded at midnight last night. I actually think it was quite a good episode, considering we were knackered.
It was pretty loose.
And we just entered our Airbnb that we were previously locked out of. For that story, you're going to have to listen to the show on Saturday. And between times, there'll be a lot more from us here in New York, then Jeff in Barbados, and all the places in between while we were at the T20 World Cup. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Mike and to Brian for jumping on earlier and for sharing their stories. And yes, we'll do this again very soon. Bye for now.
Okay, bye.